Hello and welcome to the Oregon Files podcast. Today we are recording from the Douglas County Library. And first, our disclaimer. We are amateur podcasters simply for entertainment. If we misquote or offend, it was not on purpose to do so. And because we're at the library, hopefully it doesn't get too noisy with the background, but once in a while people want to know what's going on in this room, so they almost open the door and walk in and ask us questions while we're doing a podcast. But all right, and my co-host, Ellie Bowman.
Good job, Mark. And we thought a random lady was going to walk in earlier. It was kind of funny. Thank you so much, Mark. And I hope everyone's having a good April. If you guys haven't got a chance to, please check out our latest episode on ghost towns. I think Mark and I are going to do some more of those stories about ghost towns in Oregon, since we found out there's like 200 something ghost towns in Oregon, which is really kind of cool. If you want to check us out, you can check us out anywhere you get your podcasts. Mark puts it on YouTube and having like an Instagram page. You can click the little link on our bio. And today we're super stoked and delighted to sit down and talk to Megan Graham, the head honcho, the director, the runner of Saving Grace Pet Adoption. We're super, super excited to sit down and talk with her today. So
well, thank you.
Welcome
guys for
officially.
Me. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Much.
And you got my title correct. So well done.
I was thinking, what's the best way to intro you? So did you grow up here in Douglas County, Oregon, Roseburg?
No, I did not grow up here. I grew up in Indiana, actually. I'm a Hoosier by birth. I grew up in Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Oh, cool.
I went to school at IU, Indiana Hoosiers, and I got a degree in outdoor recreation. So obviously that is why I am the director of a nonprofit animal shelter. That's what that degree gets you.
Right.
No, that's how I ended up in Oregon, though, was there's a lot more opportunities for that kind of work in Oregon than there was in Indiana, believe it or not. It was a long, roundabout, twisty road to how I got to where I am now.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where I started.
That's interesting. And like really random side note, the majority of folks we've interviewed, I feel like 99% have been out of state. Like they've came to Oregon for whatever reason.
Yeah,
it's kind of
a couple times now though.
Erin from Umpqua Valley Farm to School. I think she was from Indiana too,
cool.
which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
Did you have a lot of animals growing up?
No, I only had one cat. Well, okay, that's a lie. I had a cat named Lucy, and she didn't like other cats, so she maintained that inability to get other cats for sure. And and my parents just never wanted a dog, but we had tons and tons of frogs, toads.
Yeah.
Mice. That got out of hand real quick. I don't know if you've ever had mice or small animals, because most of the time people are like, oh, that's a male and that's a female, or that's two females, and you're like, yeah, but they just had babies. So
oh my gosh.
No, we ended up with a lot of hamsters, so lots of small animals, but really just a cat growing up. But I always loved animals. My mom always took in all the strays, so she's kind of was my muse. And it was more so, it was it sounds cute, but it was more so people would be walking by and they're like, is that my dog barking in your garage? My mom's like, well, I found him, he was running on the street.
Right. Just stealing
and
dogs.
Really, she's really just kidnapped this dog, which is actually interesting because it's kind of come back up in my sheltering life now.
Yeah.
People accidentally kidnap animals all the time.
Oh, really?
And they think that they're doing the right thing, right? By I saved it, I got it off the street and I brought it to the shelter like I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
And we're like, well, okay, but that dog lived 2 doors down.
Right, did you contact the owner?
Now the dog is way far from its house.
Right.
And now we got to figure out where it lives and who its people are and how do we get it home and all that. So it was kind of interesting.
What?
And my mom was sort of doing the right thing by keeping it at the house, keeping it in the neighborhood instead of taking it to the shelter. They're much more likely to find their way home.
Right. So that's where kind of your first love for animals.
Yes, watching my mom kidnap animals was my first.
That's cute. I love that. So prior to Saving Grace, what did you kind of do?
So I guess if we went all the way back to how I started working in animal welfare, I was with the outdoor recreation degree. I was working at Mount Bachelor. I left that job. That was because that was not a super great long-term career. And I took a job at an office that was quite boring and unfulfilling. And so I started volunteering at the local spay and neuter clinic in Bend, and that just spiraled totally out of control from being a volunteer to then I joined the staff to then I became a manager and then I joined the board. I moved to Austin, Texas for a minute, and I started working for a spay and neuter clinic there. And I became the assistant to the executive director for that organization. And then life happened and we ended up moving back to Bend, where I went back to Bend Spay Neuter, became the executive director there. And I did that for about 7 years. And then I started working for an organization called Animal Balance. I'm actually still involved with that organization. We travel around the world and do spay neuter clinics in all different locations.
Wow.
So basically, wherever you can set up a surgical suite, we've done it, from churches to parking lots to gymnasiums to parks to wherever.
People just show up with their animals and it's like a drive-through spay and neuter clinic.
Yeah, not exactly drive-through, but yeah. I mean, more or less.
Yeah.
So I started working for them. Long story short, we ended up in Roseburg because my partner's grandparents are here and they needed someone to come and care for them. And just coincidentally, this position at Saving Grace happened to be coming open at the same time. So it was definitely a lot of kismet involved in that, because I can't imagine working anywhere else here in Roseburg, honestly.
Yeah.
That was definitely where I was meant to be.
We interviewed the curator from the Wildlife Safari.
Oh, yeah, that's an
I always
interesting
find
job.
that like interesting when you like interview with an animal position. Like, what is that kind of interview like? Like, do you have to interact with like the animals, or is it more just like a your standard corporate business type like interview?
Yeah, no, it's an interesting question because I think that it is still a standard interview, but I think that people who are interviewing you pay more attention to the way that you interact with the animals. So like if we've definitely had people that have come in and interviewed for positions at the shelter and the staff is like, well, they didn't even look at your dog. Like your dog went right up to them and they didn't even notice her. And they're like, no, it's a hard no from me, you know? And so it's not so much that we're like, okay, show us how you play with this dog.
Right.
It's like, okay, if this dog's gonna come up to you and you're going to completely ignore it,
so
like you're not
funny.
getting this job.
Yeah. So funny.
It feels like you get a CAT scan and a lab report.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry, dad jokes.
Wah, wah, wah.
I was like, oh, we're not doing dad jokes
Yeah.
today, and there goes Mark with his dad joke.
There you go.
That's funny. So, do you snowboard and ski?
I ski. Yep.
Yeah, I ski.
Mm-hmm.
Do you snowboard or ski? Have you ever tried
I've
that
fallen down a lot. That's
on skis?
on anything.
On anything?
I'm just
On
clumsy
ice?
naturally.
I used to snowboard a little bit back in the day. I always wanted to pick it up again,
Very cool.
but
Yeah, I missed that a little bit. That part of
Yeah.
the job was pretty
Yeah.
good when I was at Bachelor. That
Right.
you could take your ski breaks when no
Yeah.
one else was there.
yeah, and Ben's so pretty.
Yeah.
So when you started Saving Grace, like, was it like a big task to take on? Was it in a good position? Was it like
Interesting
we have a lot of
question.
work to do, or was it like in a good place?
Yeah, so it was cool. I thought it was a really cool opportunity because there was a ton of opportunity there. I mean, there was just a lot of things that they hadn't explored yet, and a lot of new things happening in animal welfare that they hadn't really, just hadn't done for whatever reason. Which is like they were doing their thing, and that was fine. But I was like, "Have you guys done this? Have we tried this?" And the staff was like, "Oh my god, she's crazy." And I'm like, "No, let's just try it. It'll be fun. Like we're gonna do it." And they're like, "Okay." Finally, they were like, "Okay, we'll do it." But it's an ironic question, mostly because on my first day at the shelter, the Archie Creek fire broke out. It was literally my first, I was like, Conway, my partner, and our family were being evacuated from Glide.
Right, Cassie.
And I was at the shelter. And so I'm like talking to him. And then we're like, well, what if the fire gets close to the shelter? And I'm like talking to the staff and I'm like, what's the evacuation plan look like? And, and they're like, oh, we don't have one. And I was like, okay,
my
cool.
God.
So let's all just
Cool,
meet.
cool.
Let's all meet, have a meeting. We're gonna do a little meeting. We're gonna talk about what this might look like if we have to evacuate all the animals from the shelter, or what's gonna happen, or if we're taking in animals. On my second day, I ended up with the operations director up at Rock Creek. There was 100 cats that had been left behind, but because the people had only a few minutes to get out, they didn't mean to leave the cats behind, but they had no other choice. Well, there's that.
I was going to ask.
Yeah.
They have
So that's probably the first issue. But yeah, so the woman had been feeding a whole bunch of outdoor cats, and they just kind of lived up there
Right,
with
right. They're gonna go to
them,
their
and they were
food.
mostly outside, and they were mostly feral.
Right.
But yeah, so my second day, we were up there probably not a great idea, trudging through where the fire had just burned through, and with Officer Bartholomew, the animal control officer, we were all up there
Bartholomew. It's a great
trying
name.
to trying to round up the cats that were still alive. So it was rough. It was a pretty hard, pretty heavy second day. But we ended up taking 44 cats off that property, and I think that 33 of them survived, and we were able to adopt them out into new homes.
Oh.
And a lot of them we had to treat for burns for a while, and they had burns on their paws, and our medical team spent a lot of time triaging and treating them, and then we ended up housing a whole bunch of animals that belong to people who were evacuated from the fire. So it was just like, boom, like first day. Okay. Hit the ground running.
Here we go.
Yeah. Everyone always says this is trial by fire. There's my dad joke.
Wow.
Well,
Okay.
I mean, that's a great way to jump into.
Yeah,
a
I
new
mean, everything else
position.
was like easy after that. Not easy,
Right,
but
right.
everything
Right, we
was,
got this. We
there was
got
not a
this.
lot of challenges that we felt like we couldn't
Right.
do as a team. So,
Right.
Yeah.
So what is like outside of crazy days like that? What is like your typical kind of like day at the Saving
there
Grace
is no
office?
typical day at the shelter. That's one of the things I like the most about it
Yeah.
is like literally you just never know what's going to happen. I
Yeah.
mean, is animal control going to bring us a stray goat? Or, is someone going to come in saying that they're going to try to shoot all these cats if we don't do
Oh.
something about it? Or, is someone going to bring in a box of kittens? Or what kind of box are they going to bring the kittens in? Or because
Oh
we
my
get all kinds of crazy things that come through the door.
So you're
Yeah.
never really like sitting down. It's just like go, 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 go.
My office, I always have the door open and I'm always kind of listening to like
Yeah.
what's going on in the lobby. And I'm like, okay,
Right.
should I get up or should I just let the staff can
Right.
do this. They got this.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
So-
Stray goat. I
Stray
love
goats.
stray-
I know. That's how you know you're in a rural area for
Yeah.
sure is like when we get stray goats. And we've had stray pigs. We've had,
straight pigs.
what else? Chickens. I mean, roosters.
How can a pig be stray?
It's not a good thing when a pig is stray. Yeah. They're just curious. Like they probably live down the street and
Yeah.
someone just kidnapped
Or
them.
even a goat
but-
though. How's a goat stray?
The goats get out all the time.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
I'm curious.
They're trouble.
Pig. A pig. How pigs can't run very
I-
fast,
I
can
didn't-
they?
We had a
They're
baby
smart, yeah.
goat though. We had a newborn baby goat not that long ago. It was like it still had its umbilical cord on, and we had to bottle feed it. And oh my god, it was really cute though. It was very cute.
So do they get adopted pretty quick?
Yeah, they got everyone wanted that goat. If you look on our
Yeah.
Facebook page, it has like 1 million. Like everyone wanted it. It's like, does the goat have a home? Does the goat have a home? Yeah, I'm like, yep, the goat has a home.
I want a goat.
I always wanted to go for
I
my
do too.
backyard.
Yeah, just for the backyard. Just let it mow.
They are.
Will it
they're
mow my
trouble.
backyard?
They're a lot. They will. Well, yes, but it'll also climb over your fence and eat everything. It'll eat your grass. It'll eat your chairs. It'll eat like anything that you leave out there. All your plants. It'll eat everything.
Even more.
Tempting.
So like yes and no.
Tempting.
I think I'm part goat. I'm just see what it tastes like.
Will it keep turkeys away?
I don't know. I doubt it. I think they'd be like more like friends than anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, turkeys are a problem.
Yeah, the turkeys are a problem. You have any stray turkeys?
No,
Wild turkey. I have a little wild
No
turkey.
stray
They can be hard
turkeys
to
yet.
catch. Those turkeys, yeah, they don't get it.
they're wily. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, I was going to ask so what's kind of like the more typical way animals are brought into Saving Grace?
Sure. So Saving Grace is a 501c3 nonprofit, but we hold a contract with the county. So every county in the United States has to have a means of housing and dealing with like stray animals, right? So they either run their own shelter, and it's a municipally run shelter, or they contract with a 501c3 and have the experts do it, which is what I recommend, which is what Douglas County does. So we have to legally, we take in every animal that's brought into us by animal control. It can be anything from a dog that was hit by a car to a dog that's bit someone in the face to like a lovely little Yorkie that just like, went down the wrong road and got picked up by animal control. And then so that's how we take in animals through animal control. Basically, whatever they take us, or whatever they bring us, we take. For the public, it kind of depends on our housing situation. We've changed a lot over the last few years in order to, gets complicated, but
It's okay.
we used to have what is referred to as like we would have so there's a thing called live release rate, and live release rate means the number of animals that leave the shelter with a positive outcome. So the live release rate at the shelter just probably 5 or 6 years ago was like 63%, which is not very good. And that means that a lot of animals are still being euthanized for space, potentially for treatable medical conditions. We no longer do that. We have a 95% live release rate now.
Nice.
But part of that is because we had to increase our ability to treat treatable medical conditions. So that's like more money. We had to raise more money to be able to do that. We have a veterinarian on staff who has a medical team who can do that. And then you also kind of have to commit to making sure that you have enough kennels to house all the animals, right? So if you don't have enough kennels, then what are you going to do? So we've increased our foster homes. So we now have like double the number of foster homes that we had before.
Well, I work with Dawn Anderson.
Nice. Oh, Dawn's sweet. Yeah.
She was our first interview we had.
Oh, cool.
So,
Oh.
yeah.
Yeah, she's very cool.
Not to
She's
cut
on
you
my
off, but yeah.
she's on one of my event committees right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's awesome. And so, so we have a ton of foster homes. The other thing that we do is we call it managed intake. So if someone has like, oh, they call us, I need to surrender my cat. Okay, what's the deal? Like, is it because you're getting kicked out of your house tomorrow? Or is it because you just don't want your cat anymore? Like, have you tried to rehome it on your own? There's kind of a newer website called Home to Home, and we rely on that a lot. So it is a platform for people to rehome pets on their own.
Okay.
And directly. And so a lot of times people will call us and they'll say, oh, do you have any small dogs? And we're like, no, we don't have any small dogs, but if you want to check out Home to Home, I bet there's some small dogs on there, and you can just rehome directly through the pet's owner, which is so much better because it keeps the animal out of the shelter. The people that are rehoming the animal obviously know way more about it than we do. So you're going to get a lot more information about the animal, about the pet from directly from the owner, as opposed to having us as like a third party middleman kind of a thing.
Is and then really again, you're like local?
It's national.
Oh, national.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So it's like home-home.org.
Okay.
So we definitely refer people to that. And then we keep a wait list for anyone else. So if it's like, we kind of just have to triage the wait list and say, okay, this person's losing their house next week. Call them back and say, hey, did you find something? Did you figure something out? No. Yes. Okay. No. Okay. Go ahead and bring your pet in, on this day and this time, and you can surrender him. But we also try to do a lot of people and pets together. So we'll ask a lot of questions. Okay. Why are you surrendering your pet? And is there anything we can do?
Right.
So if there's, treatable medical condition. So like, oh, my cat has, an upper respiratory infection and I can't afford to take it to the vet, so I'm going to surrender it. No. Like, let us help you figure that out. Like, we'll just treat the pet for you. Basically, they have to surrender the pet to us temporarily so that we can treat it. We treat the pet and then they re-adopt it out.
That's interesting.
So rather than, one of my favorite things to say is there's no reason to create a homeless pet when a pet already has a home. We don't have that luxury, and why would we? But why would we want to? If someone wants to keep their pet, we want to make sure that we keep them together, at all costs as much as we can.
So you rely solely on donations for that to stay that afloat? Because that would be costly, right?
It is very costly. So of our about $1 million budget, less than 10% comes from our contract with the county, and the rest of that money we just have to find.
Wow.
But our board of directors helps too. We have a couple events that we do every year, and then grant money, but the majority is individual donations. Wow. So our community is pretty amazing in the fact that they make that all possible. Right. Without our community support, we couldn't do those programs.
So if they want to donate, how did they go about doing that?
Our website's the easiest. It's savinggracepetadoptioncenter.org. It's super long, but anyways, the easiest way to do it there. Also, you can always stick a check in the mail or just give us a call. And there's actually a button you can push for donations, and usually I'll answer the phone.
Right. Well, I think people love animals and pets, it's probably a great thing to donate to.
Yeah, it's not the most difficult thing to raise money for.
Yeah.
I found that when I worked at the spay neuter clinic, it was a little bit more difficult to raise money for that because it's a lot harder to see like the immediate impact, right? But at the end of the day, it's what, keeps the animals out of the shelter. Right. So it's the solution at the end of the day, which is frustrating because you're like, but no, give money to this because then we don't have to give money to the shelter because the animals aren't in the shelter in the first place.
Right.
But yeah.
So 2-part question. What's the hardest part and what's the most rewarding part about working at Saving?
I think the most, I don't know, it's a very emotional roller. It's very much an emotional roller coaster. I think for me personally, and I think if you asked anyone at the shelter that works there, there might be a slightly different answer depending on who you talk to. But I think the most difficult part for me is seeing people lose their pets. So people that come in that have to surrender their pets because something has changed in their life that it prevents them from keeping their pet. So like, for instance, there was a guy who came in, he was older, his dog was 12 and his dog was kind of a handful. And he had lived with his dog in their house here in Roseburg he had lived there for like the 20 years, but he and the dog had been there for 12 years. And someone bought the house that he was renting and it was no longer pet friendly. So, and this dog, like, they were bonded. It was just the two of them. He tried to live in his car with the dog for like a month and finally, like, literally just rolled up in the parking lot with all of his stuff in the car and the dog and said, I can't do this anymore. And the two of them, he was just like crying in the parking lot, with the dog, like hugging the dog. Jeez. It was super sad. So like that is what we want to try to avoid like as much as possible. So we're trying to work with local, one of the things we have an advocacy committee that is trying to work with local property management companies to encourage them to at least, if not be pet friendly, at least consider pets.
Right.
So especially like older animals that really aren't, they're not going to do anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I know, like I have 3 pit bulls and 3 cats. Like if I were to be a renter, it'd be like a hard no, right? Like right off the bat. But if you met my animals, and I have references, I'd be like, my animals have never damaged a house ever. Like they're great. Like, and I've got all these references. So it's like, will property managers, and landlords, would they be willing to just do an interview? Like you don't have to say necessarily a hard, not pet friendly. Be like, hey, potentially, open to pets with an interview and references.
Right.
So that's something that we're trying to encourage the community to do, because that is just, we've seen that so many times recently, just with the eviction moratorium being lifted last year. We've seen tons of pets that have been surrendered because people just can't find housing, and it's heartbreaking. So that's the most difficult thing. I think one of the most rewarding things is when pets and people are reunited that have been separated for a long time.
Yes.
One of the other programs that we've started doing is temporary boarding, which is really cool because usually they'll go into a foster home while their dad's in the hospital, or, maybe has been incarcerated even, but we have a finite time that we know that or more or less, they're going to be in the hospital for 3 weeks, or they're going to be, incarcerated for 2 months. But they love this animal. It's like their reason for being. Is there any way that we can house it and then be able to reunite them when they're able to take them back? And sometimes they can't. Sometimes it works out that they can't take them back and we end up, finding them a new home. But the times that it works and the people come back, like when the older man, who went into the hospital for surgery comes into the shelter, we've had his dog for 2 months and they see each other again. It's like,
Or if it's like a movie, slow motion.
Yeah, it's like, so he's crying, we're crying.
The dog's crying.
Yeah, the dog's crying.
Right.
So that's one of my favorite things, is when stuff like that happens.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, a few years ago now, I think it was a few years ago, my cat, I let her out one morning, and I think it was around Christmas time, and we think she got trapped in someone's shed, maybe getting Christmas stuff out.
That happens a lot.
All the time, right? So I don't know, a couple days go by, a couple weeks go by, and we're starting to panic. We did the whole call saving grace.
Yeah.
We put up the lost pet stuff on the telephone poles. Well, 24 days go by, she scratches up the back door, and you can tell she lost a little weight, and she has a little nick on her nose.
Yeah.
I think she's a little bigger cat. She's a big girl, but I think she had lose a little weight and is able to squeeze out wherever she was
oh wow,
hiding at.
yeah.
But yeah, the reunion even then was it was 12:30 at night, and everyone was just up from there. She was meowing, she was super hungry, and she gained her weight back pretty quick after that.
I bet.
But yeah, it was this. I mean, of course, for us, it was the
The miracle,
emotional release.
yeah, the
She's
Christmas
been
miracle.
gone for almost a month, and I don't know.
Cats can be gone for
Yeah.
a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we've had a couple along those same lines, microchip miracles where
Right.
we'll get a cat in with a microchip and we call and they're like, I moved to Albany 3 years ago. And they're like, you have my cat? We're like, oh my God, I'll be there.
Yes.
That happened once. She's like, I'm in the car right now. I'm coming down there. I'm picking up my cat. It was crazy.
Yeah,
So
that
if
is-
they could talk, right? What is their story?
Right.
How
Put a
did you get
GoPro on
here?
them.
Yeah.
Right.
What happened to you? Again, it's probably
Right.
some they either got stuck somewhere or
Right.
some, Good Samaritan,
Right.
thought that they were lost and
Right.
moved them from one area to another. And in real life, most of the time, they're within 5 blocks of
Right.
where they went missing.
Mark, you adopted
So
Chihuahuas?
So here's the
Or-
deal. I have 3 Chihuahuas.
Oh
Yeah.
boy, he's a Chihuahua guy.
Yeah,
No, I'm not.
I think if you have 3, that makes you a Chihuahua
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah,
I
Mark.
love those dogs. Here's the deal. I will die for those dogs right
I
now.
love
You
it.
wouldn't believe, right? All 3 of them completely different personalities.
Yeah.
No, I love my dogs.
No.
Moral of the story.
Yep.
I love my
I
Chihuahuas.
love my Chihuahuas.
Little land
Oh my
sharks.
gosh,
That's what we
right.
call them in the little land sharks.
what do you call them?
Land
Land
sharks.
sharks?
Little land shark.
Yes.
Chomp, chomp, chomp.
Yes.
Yeah. If you work for vet office, you know that those are the ones to really be afraid of. Can you spell Chihuahua though?
CHIHUAHUA, right?
Yeah, it's Chihuahua. That's how I had to learn to spell
Chihuahua.
it. Yeah.
Yep.
Wait,
So now
doesn't-
everybody
it
knows.
translates into something though, right? Isn't it in
Tiny ass
Spanish?
dog?
Tiny ass dog.
Land shark in Spanish.
Yeah, it's land shark in Spanish. For
Any
sure.
other nicknames for other animals like that?
Well, we refer to the Douglas County Special sometimes, which is just any standard big brown dog is a Douglas County Special. we get them all the time. I have one actually. My
That's
dog Bo is
random.
a Douglas County Special. He's an 80-pound reddish brown
That is random.
pit bull, basically.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
What other pets do you have?
What other pets?
Yeah, what do you have? Yeah.
I got Bo, the 2-year-old. Oh God, Bo's actually a really good story if you want. that. So I got Bo, Sam, Pip. Pip's a good story too, and then I have 3 cats. So Bo, we've had Bo for 2 years, and one of our employees, her name is Sin. She was down at Galesville Reservoir, and she was leaving. They were driving out of the reservoir, and she saw what she thought was like a pile of brown leaves on the side of the road, and she's like, "God, it looks like a pile of leaves, but it also looks kind of weird. I'm gonna stop." So she pulls over, and the pile of leaves kind of move. And it turns out it was like a 6-month-old, like super emaciated dog that was almost like he was very at the end of his rope. Like he was not going to make it. She like literally had to like pick him up and put him in her car. And he just kind of like looked at her. His face is all sunken in. Now that I know Bo, I think he probably was like, "Peace out. I don't want to live with you anymore. Like I don't like you guys, so I'm out. I can make it on my own. I'll be fine." And lo and behold, he really couldn't make it on his own. Yeah, he had been out there for quite a while on his own. So she brought him back to the shelter. Yeah, and this is her day off too. She brings him back to the shelter and talks to her coworkers at the shelter, and they're both like, "Well, we can't." Like it was a Sunday, we're closed, and they're like, "Well, he can't stay in the shelter. Like he's too fragile. Like we gotta." And her coworker Brittany was like, "Well, I'll take him home and I'll foster him." Okay. So he goes home with Brittany, and she nurses him back to health over the course of like a month or so. And he did great. He just needed, lots of love and care and food. And then introduced him to Conway, who's my partner, who was looking for a dog at the time. And they fell in love immediately. And so we've had Bo for 2 years, and Brittany is still Bo's favorite person. So Bo is he does not trust people when he meets them at first. He's like, "Nope, you got to earn my trust, friend." But Brittany, he knows Brittany and he loves Brittany. And he remembers Sin too, which is super interesting because he only was with Sin from the time that she found him to the time that she took him to the shelter. And then he went straight to Brittany's, and then he came to my house, but he still remembers that girl. And he's like, "I love her. She is my person."
Man,
like,
that's the best thing about dogs.
Yeah, he's smart, man.
Really,
He's
really
loyal and smart. He's a cool dog. So that's Bo. And then my Sam was a parking lot dog that I found when I was in Austin. And she ended up we got her DNA done. And she ended up being a purebred American Pit Bull Terrier. I was like, seriously?
Wow.
Should I have a purebred dog? Like I work at the shelter of purebred dog.
Right.
But she's
Show
fantastic.
dog.
She's adorable. She thinks she's a show dog. It actually made a lot of sense. I was like, "Oh, you knew you were a purebred
Hams it up.
all this time." Yeah.
Walks by the mirror like
She
looking at
does.
herself.
I actually, when I click the camera, when the camera noise on my phone, she's all, "Oh,
She's just
I'm sorry.
waiting for
Are
the
we
ball
taking
play.
pictures right now?" Like, okay.
Let me do my hair.
Yeah, exactly. And then Pip is a 17-year-old American Pit Bull Terrier mix. I don't really know what she is. She was at the shelter. I've had her for a year. She was at the shelter. Her owner died, and she was 16. And she was a hot mess. You can only imagine this girl. Like, she's super cute. I wish I could show you a picture of her, but she was a hot mess in the shelter. And I was like, she cannot stay here. Like, what is going on? So I was like, well, I'll do a hospice foster. That's one of the things that one of our programs was like, she's probably only got a few weeks left. I'll just take her home. And that was a year. That was more than a year ago now. And she's like, whatever, I'm living my best life. Like, this is awesome. I love this. I love you guys. So she's amazing. And then we have a super old cat, which is actually, God, another good story. Sorry.
No.
But
That's what
I'll
we
try
do,
to make
just
this one
stories.
short.
No,
Yeah.
no.
No, this is great.
So-
Plenty of time.
this is crazy.
Yeah.
Bruce. Okay, so Alvin and Joey I've had forever. They're amazing. I love
Alvin
Alvin and
and
Joey. I got them from my first animal welfare gig, actually, Ben Spay Neuter. When I was volunteering, I got them. So I've had them for 14 years. But Bruce, when I started working at the shelter, came in. So we get stray cats in. What we typically do is we spay and neuter them. We assess their health, first of all. If they look healthy, like someone's feeding them, they're not making their own, beans and rice at home, like that someone is feeding them. They don't have their own kitchen. So if they look healthy and good, we check and see if they've been fixed. If they haven't, we vaccinate, fix them, and we put them back because there's a good chance that they've got at least one home, if not more than one home, that is taking care of them. We've had families come in where they're like, "No, that's my cat. No, that's my cat." And we're like, "Back away slowly. You guys can figure this out. Here you go."
Right.
But so
you choose cat.
Yeah.
when they are not in that great a shape, we keep them and we adopt them out. So Bruce was not in great. I mean, he was like 100 years old, and we were like, well, we probably shouldn't put this cat back out. Like he's looking pretty rough.
Yeah.
So we put him up for adoption. He was at the shelter for a while, like not a lot of interest, super old, kind of mangy looking, like just scraggly old cat.
Kind of like Mark.
Yeah, exactly. Scraggly. He had a scraggly beard. Yeah.
My type of cat.
And finally, I was like, you know what? I'm going to take this cat home. I like him. He's kind of like,
Yeah.
I like this guy. And so I brought him home, and Conway, my partner, was like, seriously? He's like, that cat is so smelly. He eats with his paw. He eats with his paws. Like, he eats his wet food with his paws, and he eats
What?
dog food.
He's
He's real
his paws.
old and smelly.
Like he just
yeah, I
scoops
don't
it
know
and, like-
why. Yeah, he does. He just scoops it. So his
I've never
paws
seen
are
a cat do that. before.
disgusting. Like his paws just have wet food all over them all the time. So he like leaves a trail wherever he goes in the house.
What?
He's
I've
gross.
never seen a cat.
But I love it.
I'm just trying to picture like
Yes.
a cat just like
Scoops it up.
with
Yeah,
his hand,
he does.
his
And he's
paw.
right pawed. He scoops with his right paw. So
What?
yeah, he
That's
scoops.
amazing.
It's weird.
Put a spoon like in his
Oh
paw
my
and
God.
like
I
see
know.
what he
I've
does.
thought about that before. If only they had thumbs. But if they had
Right.
thumbs, they would rule the world.
That's so wild. I love this.
So, okay. So Bruce is at the house, right? Bruce is like cruising around.
Yeah.
We have a party for my partner's Conway's grandpa's birthday about a year ago. And we had a whole bunch of people over the house, including Conway's cousins, Farah and Dawn. Farah and Dawn are in the backyard eating, and they love cats. And we always knew that Farah and Dawn love cats. They're eating their hamburgers in the backyard. Bruce is like begging. And Dawn's like, Farah, that cat looks an awful lot like Squawk.
Oh.
And Farah's like, he kind of does look like Squawk. And we were like, Conway and I are like listening. We're like, And they're sitting back there. We're talking. All of a sudden, Dawn goes, Farah, that is Squawk. She's like, that is Squawk. And Farah's like, I don't think it is. And I was like, wait a minute. Let me just tell you how I got this cat. And I was like, he was trapped over by Stewart Park. And they were like, oh, that's where we live. And we were like, and he's like, we lost our cat, this cat, like 2 years ago. Like he just went missing. He never came home. Like this cat found its way into our lives. We were taking care of him for probably 5 years. And then he just disappeared one day. And we were super sad. We didn't know what happened to him. I don't know why they didn't think to look at Saving Grace, but they didn't. And so they just thought that he probably died or something, and they were like, they pulled out their phone and they're like, Farrah's like, look, it's him.
Like
and I was like,
holding
oh
it
my
to the-
God, it is him. Like, what are the chances of all the thousands of
is-
animals that I could have taken home from the shelter? Literally thousands of cats that I picked the one that happened to used to belong to them. And they're like, we just are so glad that we know what happened to him, that he's
is
okay.
crazy.
Yeah.
Was there a picture on the phone of the cat using the
I was
No.
Like,
gonna-
he's like,
But it was funny because he
Do it,
used
Squawk,
to
do
help.
it.
He used to help Farah with her quilting classes, and we always call him the helpful cat because he always comes down when we're gardening or like doing something in the shop or whatever. He's always there. And she was like, "Yeah, he did that for us too.
What?
Super
I
cute."
love
So they
It
didn't
was such
be
a good
like,
story.
we want our cat back. They're like,
No,
no,
so we did
dude,
have that
it's a good-
conversation, and they're like, "Actually, we're super allergic, and so he can
Oh.
never come in the house." And so like we're so excited that he gets to stay in the house now, and he gets to like have his retirement, in
His
your
retirement
house.
party.
Yeah, and then they sent us a check to the shelter. It was really cute. They sent a donation check that was like back child support.
It's so cute.
Did they write
It
that
was
in the
really nice.
memo?
They did. They
Back
did.
Squawk child
She
support.
did. She wrote
That
it in the
is
memo.
cute.
Yep.
My gosh. We have
Eh.
one comes over next door. We renamed him Oatmeal, but his name's Jojo. We found
That's
out. But we
cute.
call him Oat. But he makes this vacuum noise when we give him like treats.
Yeah.
And he just makes this like, I'm like, I don't, is he like guarding or is
That's
he just like the
adorable.
he's like the, and again, he's orange, he's mangy.
Aw.
He's like super sweet. But he just comes over. He just like knows if he hangs out on the back patio long enough, like Chelsea's
knows.
just gonna
Yeah.
like toss him.
Yeah.
Here, you
He's
go,
like,
you
this
get a
is the
treat.
house where I get my treats.
Right, he gets
Yeah.
the treats.
He's like, I have another place where I get wet food.
yes, and then we see him a couple houses down, and Chelsea's like, she's like super heartbroken, like Oatmeal's down 2 ounces.
just-
He
down.
gets
How
jealous.
dare you.
She
Yeah,
gets
right,
jealous.
yeah.
Right, and then we have a chicken that comes around too. We
Oh, that's
named her
funny.
like Lorelei,
Uh,
and like she just makes a mess in the mulch. But do you ever get surrendered chickens?
me too. And usually they go home with staff who have chickens already. It's just easier that way. Yeah. Sometimes we get roosters, but
Yeah.
those are a little harder to rehome. So
What's like the most random like pet that's been like surrendered or brought in? Or
one time someone found a parakeet at Walmart, and
gosh,
we
what is-
actually reunited it with its owner, which was amazing. Like we had a
What?
return to home. We call it return to home. We had a return to home parakeet, which was like, that never happens.
Wait a minute. Was
so
it
many.
so many questions? Was it like in the store? Was it out the store?
It was in the store, and they
Was it,
caught
like,
it. I don't know how
hopping?
they caught it. I have no idea. It
Was
was
it, like,
fine. Yeah,
yelling
there
at
was nothing
people?
wrong with it. It was fine.
Was it
Sure.
a talking parakeet?
No. It was
Oh,
one of
I
those
was
little
like, could
ones,
you
just like one of those teeny tiny ones.
Oh.
Yeah. But which is even more amazing that they were able to capture it and then get it to the shelter. And then we put it on Facebook, and someone's like, "That's my bird," and I'm like, Okay, like cool, come and
Was
get
it
it.
like on their shoulder and they went shopping?
I have no. That's the thing.
Or,
Like
in their
it just got out of like their house, like, and it made its own way to Walmart.
It
Like
was
it wasn't even at
shopping.
Walmart with its people.
Brought
It
back
just was
prices.
like, I mean, it's smart. Maybe it was like, hey, if I go to Walmart,
Yeah.
someone's gonna capture me and take me home. I'm lost. I don't know.
But like the door was
still
to
make
go
questions.
in,
I-
and then it
I know.
flying.
So was
Again,
the security camera?
no
footage?
idea.
Like a little bird walking in.
With a little shopping bag or like a little car.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is. So...
That was a weird one.
love that.
But how do you like the parakeet? If somebody says that's my bird, like how do you know of like
Right.
that's their
We
their
actually
bird?
they had pictures. And
Okay.
oh,
I
and
mean,
this
that
was
makes
actually even
sense.
better. They had like a call, so they could do. They did like a little whistle, and the bird did the whistle back.
Oh my!
But we were
gosh.
like, okay, well, there's no question
Yeah,
that this is your
exactly.
bird.
Oh my
It was
God.
really cool.
I
Yeah,
love that.
it was pretty neat.
That is the cutest thing.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
Chelsea's mom's got an Amazon parrot,
Oh my gosh.
and it's annoying because it squawks like if it's not getting enough attention, it just does this like alarm blaring noise. Like
Yeah, I've never understood the draw of birds,
No.
honestly. But I mean,
It
I'm just
says
like they're nice
pretty bird.
outside. I don't know why they need to be inside.
right, and she says pretty bird, or she says hi Paris and like pretty bird or something like that. And I've been like for like ever, I've been trying to teach her to say go Yankees, but
Yeah.
it's been not
not happening.
not success.
No.
No, but she's really pretty though, and she like I don't know.
Yeah.
I try not to get my fingers too close. I'm always afraid she's gonna like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
But
hurts.
I just want to pet her.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! Do you have a favorite animal?
Do I have a favorite animal? My favorite animal is probably a 3 to 4 week old kitten. I don't know
Oh
if
my
you've ever like fostered kittens, but when they're 3 to 4 weeks old, and they have
Yeah.
these tiny little triangle ears that are
Yeah.
like little fuzzy, and they have these little tiny tails
Yeah.
that just are
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
and especially if they're feral and they think
Yeah.
that they're real tough and they're all like the
Right.
cutest thing in the whole world going hissing at you.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
the best.
Yeah.
So random. It's not like
That's
random.
cute.
Yeah.
Specifically, a 3 to 4 week old kitten is my favorite animal.
Okay, let me ask you a different way. Do you have a favorite animal that couldn't be in Saving Grace?
Ooh, we could. I mean, I'm going to be honest. We could take a lot of animals.
Okay.
No, but I would have to say, if I could be any animal, it would be like a sea otter
A
or
sea
river
otter?
otter, a river otter, because they have less predators.
And
they're
they're
just gonna have
adorable.
fun. Yeah, and they
just
just like
chill on their
whenever you
back and,
see them,
like-
they're just like hanging out,
Right,
like playing in the river and
Right.
chilling. So yeah,
Right.
that's. I mean, if I could be any animal, that's what I would
That's a
be.
good answer.
Yeah,
Do you ever go to
put
like
a lot of thought into it.
do you ever go to like zoos or like aquariums and in the position you're in, I mean, do you have like a different kind of like lens you put on like as you're like looking at like
Yeah, that's
how,
an
like,
interesting
the,
question.
you know, the care of animals, I guess?
Yeah, I struggle with that a little bit. Just animals in captivity in
Yeah.
general, because like people think that the shelter is a great place for animals, and we do the best we can, but it's still never going to be. No shelter is a good place for animals,
Right.
regardless of what kind of enrichment you do, how many times they get out. They're social animals. They're not with other animals, and they're isolated, and it's sad and scary and loud and all the things. But I know in a zoo that they take better care at that kind of thing. So I think it depends on the facility a lot. Like Wildlife Safari is amazing.
Amazing.
Like super accredited, sanctuary, like all the things. But then you've got like roadside zoos that are like not accredited and probably don't have great care for the animals, and the animals are not stimulated, and so it's a sad situation in that case. So I think it depends on what the facility is and if it's got a big educational component to it. I think it's really important for kids to have that experience so that they can appreciate wildlife and animals in our environment as they grow up and make choices that will hopefully impact the environment in a good way as we all get older. But yeah, to have that appreciation, I think you do have to kind of experience it firsthand, or at least I think that helps. But so places like Wildlife Safari, heck yeah. Places like other roadside zoos that I will not name on this show. But do your research before you go to
Right.
them, before you support them by buying a ticket. Like
Right.
make sure that they are accredited by, I think it's the Global Animal Sanctuary, GFAS or something like
Yeah,
that. I
something
forget.
like that.
Global Federation of Animal Sanctuaries,
Yeah.
GFAS. It's a really tough designation to get, but Wildlife Safari has it.
Right.
So
And that's
Yeah.
what Dan was saying.
Dan
That's
Hansen,
what he
yeah.
was kind of saying
They're
too a
very
little
proud
bit.
of it.
they should be.
Right.
Yeah.
Some people like look at like almost like, oh, you have these animals here, you keep them in captivity, but it's the total opposite. I mean, they're
Yeah.
doing everything they can to help these animals.
Well, yeah, and like they have everything at their finger. Like those animals
Right.
don't have to hunt. They don't have to worry about predators. So
Right.
it's like, I don't know. Like,
get great
can you
care.
sacrifice some amount of the population to create that, inspiration in kids and things like that? I think there's
Right.
probably some room for that. And wildfire, they're breeding those animals so that they can be put back into the wild in
Right.
some cases and actually saving the species. So that's pretty cool.
And you can literally see like how well those animals are taken care of.
Yeah.
And,
Right,
like, they
totally.
seem like
Yeah.
they're living just an incredible life.
Yeah. So that'd be my opinion is
Yeah.
just do your research before you go.
Right. If you could talk to any animal, which
Ugh.
animal would you pick? Have a
This one was a
conversation
weird
with?
for me. Like in my head, it was like it's my dog Ninja, my dog Ninja, like my specific dog who passed away in August. He was
Oh.
like my soul dog. He was like my man.
Yeah.
First dog my first dog ever actually because I didn't have dogs growing
Yeah.
up. So he came from a shelter in Stockton and I got him through a rescue group in Bend, and he was like 8 weeks old, and he's just the cutest effing puppy. I'm not going to say any swear words, but he was the cutest puppy in the whole world.
Yeah.
And he's just my man. So yeah, if I could talk to him, like if he could talk back
Right.
to me, that would have been the animal I'd pick for
Right.
sure. Although I would like to talk to Sam too, because she's funny.
Yeah.
She and Ninja were buddies. But she's the one who's the purebred American Pit Bull Terrier. I always wanted to know, like, how did you end up in that parking lot? Did you
Right.
leave? Did you leave on purpose,
Yeah.
or did you just like jump out of someone's window? We did find out that she knew how to roll down windows. So I don't know if she maybe just
Interesting.
popped out of a window. But
Right.
yeah. So
That would I don't know, if you had a superpower or super ability, I think that would be up there. Ability to talk to animals.
Oh,
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
That'd be a good one.
I mean,
Totally
Bruce,
inside.
like that old cat, also like he didn't show up at Don and Farrah's house until he was 15. So what was he doing before that? How many other names has he had? You know, like how many names does he have? We only know 2, but like what was he doing for the first 15 years of his life? You know, did he like have a home that like people loved him? Did he get out? Did he like get lost? Did they leave him behind? Like everybody makes up stories. That's the other thing at the shelter.
Yeah.
Everybody makes up a story about like, well, they abandoned this cat. And I'm like, how do you know they abandoned the cat? Like, look at the cat. He's fat. Like he
Right.
looks really healthy.
Right.
I don't know if he got abandoned. Like,
Right.
9 times out of 10, like if they have a microchip to call, they're like, oh no, he got out like when we moved, and oh my God, we lost him and we're so sad. You know, like the majority of the time it's not like anything nefarious, but everybody always makes up this crazy story.
Yeah.
So
Right.
don't like immediately jump to the worst possible case scenario. They're
Right.
abusing him. Like, no, he has a skin condition. Like, like,
Right.
and the people like can't afford a vet or like whatever it is. And like, they really want to, but like, we just have to have this. So then it's like, okay, just have that conversation with these people. Like,
Right.
what can we do to help you keep your pet? Well,
Yeah.
we don't know why his hair is falling out, but we can't afford to take him to the vet. And like, okay, well, let's have our vet look at him and we'll just fix it. And they're like, oh my God, that's fantastic. Yes, we'd love to keep him. We're actually not terrible people.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I wonder, do people do that like a defense mechanism? Like
Yes.
almost feeling kind of
Yeah.
like
Yes.
guilty of, yeah.
Yeah, I think absolutely. It's a way to kind of
Cope.
rationalize,
Yeah.
like why this animal doesn't have a person, or
Right.
why it's in the condition that it's in. So yeah, that's an interesting way to put it, but I think
Yeah.
it is kind of a coping mechanism.
Yeah. How often do animals, like on a weekly basis, animals are brought in like every week and
Oh, constant. I mean, do you mean like for surrender?
yeah, or you surrender or just
Every
Lost and
day,
found, or-
every day,
yeah.
all the
Every-
time,
every-
constantly. Yeah. No, people walking through the door. Like yesterday, someone brought us a puppy that was found in a box, apparently, at Stewart Park. Cute. Again, like this little puppy in the box is the cutest thing in the whole world, but also sad. Like I don't know why or how it ended up
Yeah.
there. And we try not to, again, make up stories.
Right.
Sometimes people that bring us the stray animals, or especially puppies, like there's not a lot of stray puppies, let's be honest.
right.
A lot of times it's just the last puppy that they couldn't get rid of from the litter.
Right.
And,
Oh.
they don't want to be the one that's like surrendering
Right.
it to the shelter. So they say, well, I found it. And so we always try to tell people like, please just tell us it's your pet. Like, it's okay. We're not going
Right.
to judge you. Like, but it helps us like know way more about the animal if you can
Sure.
just tell us that,
more
you know,
history.
yeah, the more
Right.
history you have, the better, because like people come to adopt an animal and they're like, well, I need it to be good with cats, kids, and I want it to be able to go to the beach and be off leash. And
Right.
is it potty
Right.
trained? And we're like, we've had this dog for 2 days, ma'am. Like we have no idea. And it's
Right.
been in a shelter environment. Like I would love to be able to tell you all these things and say like, absolutely, it's going to do that. But we don't know.
Right.
But if someone brings us an animal, and they do know that information, it's super helpful for us to be able to find it a new home.
I mean, do you have a favorite story or like a reconnection, like a more positive story, I should say,
Yes.
like if
Yeah.
somebody being reconnected with
You,
their
you want a happy story?
Yes,
No more sad
we
stories?
want happy
Okay.
stories.
Okay, I can do that.
Not that we don't. We obviously know that both sides too. You know,
all the happy stories
Yeah.
have a sad
yeah,
beginning.
that's okay.
But this one doesn't really. I mean, it does kind of. Okay, so this is a good one. It just sticks out in my head.
Yeah,
Last January, we got no, it wasn't even a stray dog. So sometimes, we used to. We don't anymore because we pretty much our kennels are full all the time now. Unfortunately, it's something that animal shelters are dealing with across the country right now. We haven't had, 2 days ago, we had all 50 of our kennels full, and that is not good. So anyways, we used to be able to take in dogs from Northern California once in a while because the shelter down around Weed, Wairika, was real small and real under-resourced. So we would sometimes, when we could, take dogs from them just to help them out. And we got this dog in as a transfer from Wairika. He was a husky. And a lot of times when we get purebred dogs here, they go pretty quick. So we kind of we're like, okay, this dog will probably move pretty quick. We named him Marco. And Marco was at the shelter from January. And so just for frame of reference, a dog being in the shelter for a month is a pretty long time for us. So anything over a month is a really long time.
That's
so
interesting.
Yeah, usually they don't stay too much longer than that, depending on, are they old? Are they a pit bull?
Right.
Are they big?
Right.
Do they have a blocky head? All of those things play against them a lot of times. But so, yeah, a month is kind of a long time. So this dog, Marco, was with us from January to May. So he had been with us for a long time, and we were like, why is he not getting adopted? I just don't understand. It was just weird, but sometimes we get that, for no reason, we'll just have one animal that people just don't have a lot of interest in. We're like, nobody even wants to meet him. I don't understand what the deal is. He's, So anyways, we were one day we're like, okay, we need to market him more. He's been here for a long time. We really need to do a Facebook post about him. So we got some new pictures of him. We had our photographer come, made him look real cute. We got some different angles because we had posted him when we first got him. I don't think we had posted him a whole lot since then. And so we put up these new pictures of him, and we get this phone call from this woman who's like, I think that is my brother's dog. And we were like, oh, okay. We were like, where do you live? And she's like, Eugene. And we're like, okay, well, we're in Roseburg, and we got this dog from Northern California. So I doubt this, it's a pretty standard looking husky.
Yeah, right.
I don't think this is your brother's dog. Right. And she's like, okay, well, I'm going to call him anyways, and just see. Yeah. And so she sends him the pictures that we put up on Facebook. And there is one picture where you can see kind of a distinctive spot on his face that it looks, you can tell it's a little bit different. So he sees the picture and he's like, oh my God, that's my dog. And so he calls us and he's like, here's what happened. And we were like, I don't think this is your dog, but you're welcome to come down and see if this is your dog, right?
Sure.
So he's telling us, he's like, my dog, I live in Eugene. He's like, I left my dog out in the yard every day when I go to work. We have a fenced backyard. He just loves being outside. And so I leave the door open. He just goes in and out. And he was wearing his harness. And, he's like, this is just what I did every day. It's I work construction, so I work long days. And sometimes he just, he wants to go in and out. So he's like, I came home from work in January and my dog was gone. He wasn't in the backyard. His harness was folded neatly on the porch. And he's like, someone stole my dog. And I was like, oh my God, that's terrible. He's like, and usually I'd be like, there you are jumping to some crazy story that no one stole your dog. But I was like, okay, someone probably did steal your dog. And he's like, he wasn't fixed. And I was like, someone probably did steal your dog to breed him. Sometimes the story is true, right? Not very often, but sometimes. So he's like, yeah, someone stole my dog. I haven't, we did all the things, we posted everywhere. We ask everyone, we put up all the posters. He was just gone. He's like, we never had any sightings of him or anything. And so this is almost June at this point. And he's like, I thought he was gone forever. He's like, nope, but that's my dog. And this is all phone conversation, right? And we're like, well, okay. So dude comes down. He's like, I'm coming down as soon as I get off work, first thing in the morning. And he and his wife, who she had been working at Taco Bell until 3 a.m. She was still in her uniform. They got to the shelter at 8:59. We opened at 9. And they're they're like, oh my God, can we see him? Can we see him? Can we see him? And all our staff is still kind of there's no way.
Skeptical.
There's no way.
Yeah.
So we take him back down the dog halls and we open up Marco's cage and literally like the dog lost his mind. Like he was
Oh,
jumping like 10 feet in the air.
Where have you been?
Dad's like, yep, that's him. He's like, that's Balto. His name's Balto. We're like, oh, that's
Balto?
random.
That's
That like
pretty
we were
for a
actually
dog.
really close. Marco Balto. So we've been
Right.
calling him Marco, but his name is Balto.
Right.
And the dog just lost his.
crazy.
Yeah, it was so
Aw.
cool. So like, yeah, again, everyone was crying. We were all crying.
Right.
They were crying. Like it was just like he was going crazy. We have this great picture of Balto and his dad, where Balto's like carrying him, like, and he's a huge husky, and
He's
they're
like
just
a,
like
like a
hugging.
child.
So
Yeah.
that was really cool. I mean,
Yeah.
but just like, if that dog could talk, how the heck did you get from Eugene to Northern California? And then what are the chances that we would have pulled that dog from that shelter and brought him up
That
here?
is just crazy.
And that someone from Eugene would have seen the post, and we just happened to do the post where you could see his
That is
spot. I mean, those
crazy.
guys were meant to be back together.
There's so many things that had to happen for that to go right.
Right? I know.
I
know.
love
that
it.
is a travel.
So that was a cool story.
That
Yeah,
is
it was a good one.
that's a long way to go,
Yeah.
man.
Yep.
Was he like
Yeah.
in good condition when you got him?
Yeah, he was fine.
Yeah.
I mean, we neutered him, so hopefully no one
Yeah.
will steal him again. But
Man,
yeah.
somebody. Well, at least they folded up the harness though.
Right? I know that was weird, right?
Yeah.
I know.
It's like the slight bit of feeling guilty and be like, I'm stealing your dog.
But I don't want this
Ugh.
harness. You can keep the harness.
Right, I'll fold it up like
I
a
don't know.
blanket for you.
Super weird. So
Well, that's a good story.
Yeah, so
that,
there
that
you go.
probably
That's a
never
good
gets
story.
old though.
No.
Like, seeing the
That
joys
was
on
a cool
people's
one.
faces,
Yeah.
like
Oh.
reuniting like that.
yeah, that's pretty cool.
Oh man, I don't think I could do that. Being I would be
It's
I
hard.
would be a mess all day.
It's hard.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
man. How many staff and volunteers do you guys have at Saving Grace?
We have 18 full-time staff members and about 2 or 3 part-time staff members, depending on the day. And then we have, on any given day, we usually have about 8 to 10 volunteers that come in
Oh,
and help
wow.
us with cleaning and walking dogs and doing enrichment for dogs and cats, getting them out, hanging out with them, teaching them new tricks and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So, yeah.
Man, that's awesome.
But we definitely rely on our volunteers a lot.
Right.
And we definitely need more staff. We're kind of in this position where we're like trying to grow responsibly and slowly, but also like just getting inundated with animals. I mean, our wait list is huge. We've got tons and tons of strays coming in. So again, like I said, just animal welfare or animal shelters across the country right now are really all kind of being inundated with animals. And I don't know if it's, a lot of people think it's the lack of spay and neuter during COVID. Some statistics say we're like 4 million spay and neuters behind, and there's just not access to veterinary care, especially in this area right now. But all across the country is experiencing that. So that's a huge problem. And then lack of pet-friendly housing and just people not being able to afford to feed pets or take them to, they can't afford it, and nor can they find veterinary care. So it's just it's a tough time to be in the field right now. It's always kind of tough, but it's real tough right now.
Added stress.
Yeah, so we need all the foster homes that we can get, all the volunteers that we can get always, and then all the donations we can get so that we can keep growing. Because, like, for instance, Green Hill Humane up in Eugene, they take in nearly the same number of animals as we do, and they have about 50 people on their staff. And we
Wow.
have 20.
Wow.
So our team works really hard, and I can't give them enough of a shout out. Like, they are just the most incredible people. They, don't make a ton of money, and they just they do it because they love the animals and they love people too. I mean, it's like one of those things that like you actually like all of the animals that come into the shelter, they only leave if they leave with a person, right? So we also have to like people, and we want to make sure that people get to keep their pets. So it's not that we just love animals, it's that our team also like does a great job of interacting with people and making sure that everyone's getting what they need.
Right. Do you ever have like a situation like that where somebody wants to come in and like adopt a pet or something like that, and you're like, I'm not sure if you should really be having an animal or adopting an animal.
We try to shy away from being too judgy.
Yeah.
But we
Yeah.
also want to we want it to be a good fit for both. So like if someone has an apartment and they want a Great Dane, okay, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe.
Right.
But do you live like really close to a dog park?
Right.
And like, how much do you work? Can you get the dog
Right.
out a lot and everything like that? Or do you want a dog that's going to be able to go hiking with you?
Right.
You probably shouldn't get that pug. Like, you know, like I really want a dog. And people just
Right.
don't think they're
Right.
like, I want this specific dog,
Right.
but I also want this dog. It's like, you know, it's like being married, right? Like,
Right. You gotta
I
find a
want
good
this
partner.
specific person to be
Right.
able to do these things, but
Right.
like So just, making sure that it's a good fit for everybody.
Yeah.
And that it's going to be long term. But again, if it's not and it doesn't work out, like people can bring the animal back. We want it to work out, you know, for everybody. There's probably another family out there that might be a better fit. So
Yeah. Makes sense. I wish I could have like just a bunch of dogs running around my house, but
Big property.
Yeah.
and-
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know. That's the dream.
yeah,
Right.
someday.
Maybe not chihuahuas, but
A herd. You don't want a herd of chihuahuas?
They have herd mentality.
segue from animal talk.
Okay.
If you had a dinner party,
Mhm.
lovely dinner party, if you can invite 3 guests,
Mhm.
dead or alive, who would you invite?
Yeah, this is it. I'm better at talking about animals.
Yeah,
but-
I like this question.
It could be animals too.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, the twist,
Ooh.
yeah.
Well, I already had my answer
Yeah.
because
You
I
did,
got
you
these
did
questions
just
in
one.
advance. So
Yeah.
no, I was thinking. I think I would like. I'm afraid. I want to meet Jane Goodall, but I'm also afraid too because I heard you're not supposed to meet your heroes, right? So like, I don't know. I was debating between her and like the Dalai Lama because that would also. I mean, who doesn't want to meet with the Dalai Lama? That would
Right.
be freaking amazing.
Right.
So like one of those two, and then my two grandfathers.
Okay.
They were both in World War II, and they were both in really different parts of World War II. And I'm like,
cool.
I'm obsessed with World War II, which sounds
Oh.
weird, but I love reading
talk
books
about
about
it all the
it, and I
time.
just think it's so interesting. Like my
Okay.
one grandpa was in the Pacific, and he was a PT boat captain.
Oh,
My other
wow.
grandpa was like in the infantry, but he was stormed the beach at D-Day at Utah Beach, I
Oh,
think.
wow.
So, and I heard like a few of their stories, you know, when they were
Right.
alive, but like
Right.
obviously that generation doesn't talk about things and they didn't
Right.
talk about it much. But I would love to hear more about that whole experience. And then I think I just have a pretty interesting family tree, like that I
Right.
never got to hear a lot about. Like my great grandfather came here from Greece, and my great grandmother came here like directly from Ireland. So it's like not that long ago that they were, you know, immigrants to this
Right.
country. And like, why did they come here? What prompts someone to make that massive life decision? And at this point, I guess I'll never know.
Right.
So yeah,
Interesting.
I would love to know more about that.
Yeah.
Good answers.
So since we're talking about the family lineage, World War II,
Mhm.
we'll break away real quick and talk about
Yeah.
because we're talking about my grandfather on my mom's side was actually he was in a concentration camp in Siberia. He was in the
Whoa.
Holocaust, and he
Whoa.
was taken
so
away.
The flip side of it. Yeah.
And then my grandfather on my dad's side actually worked on the Manhattan Project.
Oh, wow.
So the direct
Cool.
effect of those two, without even knowing each other, affected each other without, you know what I mean? I always found that incredibly fascinating, you know.
It's kind of creepy, actually. That's
it's
why
almost
you're
kinda
here.
wild.
Yeah.
But, anyway. I love the random segue I'm going into here.
Or not at all.
'Cause I know. Well, we were talking about saving grace funding and all that stuff, but I saw this recently that you guys do Barks and Recreation.
Yes.
And I was hoping you could tell me a little more about the Barks and Recreation, because I love the name of that, because I love this, because it has to come from Parks and Recreation, right?
Of course, it's my favorite. That's my favorite.
Right. It's a great show.
It's a great show.
Yeah.
So yeah, of course, and you know, actually, so side note, Pawnee totally reminds me of Roseburg. I think that Pawnee and Roseburg have a lot in common.
Yes.
Same citizens.
Especially like city government wise,
Right.
like totally. And so I work with
Right.
the city government to do Parks and Recreation. So no, so that's in this will be our second year. It's in Stewart Park on May 20th. It's just like a really fun event for people and their pets. Like bring out your dog. That's as long as he's like well behaved on leash, not like a crazy. Some
Running
dogs
around.
this is a good event for,
Yeah.
and some it's not.
Yes.
But we do like a doggy contest. We do like best hair. My favorite is probably owner dog lookalike.
Oh my gosh.
That one's really
Wow.
fun. And then we do best trick and the pie eating contest, which everybody loves the pie eating contest.
All right.
We're gonna have live music and like beer garden
Yes.
and Two Shy's giving us beer and Tori
Yes.
Rose is playing
We love Two
music.
Shy.
I know they're the best. And Nossman Family Winery is giving us wine, so that's really
Okay.
cool too.
Okay.
And just like tons and tons of pet friendly and family friendly vendors. So just like you just come out, hang out, you get a little swag bag, do the
Okay.
contest, listen to music, get some beers. Oh, we have like tons of food carts coming out.
Oh, good.
Wailani Shave Ice is coming, and they're doing special shave ice for dogs. I forget what they're calling it.
Oh
But it's
my
going to be good.
gosh.
So your dog doesn't want to miss that.
That's
Like,
awesome.
And when's this again?
May 20th from noon to 4 in Stewart
At
Park.
Stewart Park.
Yeah, at the half shell. Yeah, write that down.
I will be there.
Write that down.
We'll bring
Yeah.
we'll bring Lucy's a little introvert, but we'll find we'll still bring her.
Details on the pining.
It's not for humans.
Oh, I'll get team up with my Chihuahua because my Chihuahua and I, we could knock out a pot. We'll probably shoot it, but-
So we have a small dog and large dog category because it's not fair to put the Chihuahuas against like the
Right.
Great Danes, right?
Well,
like,
we
that's
could
not
find
cool.
out.
You see Jar Jar.
All right, I think he better enter. Like that one will fill up. That contest does fill
Yeah.
up pretty quick. So
Yeah.
you should go on our website, Saving Grace Pet Adoption Center. You can click and pre-register for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I'll go just to check out all the dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun.
I love that. So, if folks want to get involved in Saving Grace, I know we talked about donating, but if they,
Yeah.
if they want to volunteer or get a hold of Saving Grace, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, everything is on our website. So savinggracepetadoptioncenter.org. We've got all the information about becoming a foster family. You can sign up just right on the website. You can sign up to be a volunteer, come and walk dogs, hang out with our cats. Basically, we've got something for everybody. Like whatever you want to do, like let us know and we'll figure it out. Like I said, we rely on volunteers for so much. So
Very good.
yeah.
Very cool. And then I think, Mark, I'll let you take away our
So,
important questions.
We
Monday.
ask everyone gets to ask these two questions.
Okay. Mhm.
Favorite sandwich?
I think that my favorite sandwich is just like a veggie sandwich from Bob's Deli.
Ooh.
Bob's Deli has great sandwiches and they have amazing beer. I'm like plugging Bob's Deli over here,
Yeah.
but like I don't really eat meat, so just a good old veggie sandwich.
All right.
Good
Yeah,
answer, good
I
answer.
mean boring, but
No,
whatever.
it's not boring.
Yeah.
No.
All right. Favorite movie?
Grumpy Old Men.
Oh, that's a great answer.
And the follow up, like
Grumpy Old
that's
Men, yeah.
Grumpy Old Men.
Yeah.
It's just stupid and like talk
Yes.
about dad jokes, just hilarious.
Walter Matthau,
It's just
Jack
like
Lemmon,
yeah,
Sophia
when you watch that movie,
Vergara.
you feel like everything's okay. You
Right.
know, like, everything's
Right.
gonna be fine.
Yeah.
Good answers. Good answers. All right. Phenomenal.
I would say thank you, but I mean it's beyond thank you.
Yeah.
I mean this
thanks,
really
guys.
means a lot to Mark and I. I say this like I repeat myself so much like a broken record, but we literally it's like every single time we think like who are we going to interview next? What story are we going to do next?
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah,
I feel like it's an endless well around here. It's just phenomenal.
it's
But,
fun that you guys get to do this.
we just thank you so much for
Yeah.
spending an hour of time with us this morning. And if you want to get a hold of our show, it's Oregon Files Podcast at yahoo.com. Again, you can find us anywhere you can get a podcast. Mark puts it on YouTube, Instagram. Check the link on the bio. And thank you again so much.
Thank you
Thank you.
guys. Thanks for
Thank
giving
you.
me the opportunity.